He had a name once. They all did. But out here, on the shale ridge east of Hive Fractura, 3 days after the Vox went silent and before the artillery remembered they existed, he was just a whisper in the wind. Barely 2 cubits tall, wrapped in camo that smelled of moss rot and tallow wax. A stubby finger lay gentle against the trigger guard of a long pattern Acatron sniper rifle, its stock cut short to suit his frame. Beneath his hood, one magnified eye blinked in rhythm with the heartbeats of men who would never see him. 27 confirmed targets, no missed shots, no witnesses. He hadn't spoken in hours. The guardsman below called him Gob, not to his face. The Vox recorded nothing of him. Field logs mention no Ratlings in that theatre. His own regiment's manifest was incinerated in an ammo dump 2 days prior. What remained of his squad were fragments of meat in the mud behind him. He hadn't moved, hadn't blinked, except to kill. 1 shot every quarter hour. Enough to keep the heretics confused. Enough to make them think they faced a full company dug into the ridge. Enough to draw fire far from the wounded evac column crawling through the ash plain. That was the role. Not hero, not asset, not brother, ghost. He didn't mind. Silence was the one thing no one stole from him, not even the Militarum. They don't record what Ratlings see, not in the histories that matter. Every field report they ghostwrite for the Astra Militarum deletes them in the margins. Every commendation they earn is absorbed by officers with cleaner bloodlines. If they die, their gear is recycled without ceremony. Rifle, scope, 3 ration bricks, and a hip flask that's never logged, but always missed. Yet the battlefield remembers. Tracks too small to belong to baseline men, cutting clean through sludge between enemy lines. Shell casings arranged in cloverleaf spirals. Shell shock survivors whispering of laughter that wasn't human, and precision fire too disciplined to come from drunkards or scoundrels. The Imperium's finest kill teams speak of a presence that breaks the edge of vision, removes a threat, and then vanishes. Always just before it's needed most, never when it's safe. To the generals, they are logistics. To the infantry, they are a gamble. To the commissars, a tolerated blasphemy that pays in corpses. But to the battlefield itself, to the trenches, the bunkers, the fog-choked ridges, they are memory, flashless fire, rumour with a body count. The Ratling doesn't need medals. He has distance. And the faith that nobody's watching. There is no origin myth, no sanctified scroll, no shrine on terror. The Ratlings were not born in legend. They were categorized. Somewhere beneath the tectonic mass of the Administratum, among vaults of data looms and cogitator stacks thick with dust and the bones of scribes long since erased by their own ink, a single document ratified the existence of Homo sapiens minimus. Not a birthright, a designation. This was not mercy, it was necessity. The Imperium cannot afford purity when death comes faster than replacement. Under the abhuman doctrine, Sector 373, Revision 5-9A, a cluster of divergent human strains were granted the smallest measure of clemency, restricted legal status, conditional toleration, and deployability under sanctioned roles. Ogrins for brute force, beastmen for shock attrition, Ratlings for everything too precise, too small, or too questionable for a normal man to perform. No names were listed, no homeworld confirmed. Their entire species reduced to compliance vectors and resource consumption metrics. Eyesight ranked exceptional. Morale impact, negative. Food demand, high. Rebellion risk, contained. That was enough. The data slate was signed. The decree was stamped. They were now legal. Among the Adeptus Terra, there exists a caste whose sole function is to determine the border between humanity and its shadows. The biologists call it genetic divergence with intolerable variance. The Inquisition prefers functional heresy and remission. The Mechanicus call it acceptable entropy. To the Ratlings, it's just breathing. Their physical distinctions are undeniable. Shortened skeletal structure, accelerated aging curves, enlarged ocular capacity, stunted aggression thresholds. Every vector is charted, mapped, and dissected in flesh and ink. The data is so precise it no longer needs to be understood, only filed. Ratlings don't read these records. They live them. Bent spines from birth. joints suited for tunnels, voice boxes tuned for whispers or laughter, nothing in between. In another age, they would have been exterminated. In this one, they are archived. The ecclesiarchy never sings of them. No litanies are composed in their name. No cathedra bears their icon. The creed has no need for creatures who reflect the Imperium's compromises. So they are simply not spoken of, erased not by violence, but by omission. Scholar Progenium textbooks assign 2 lines to the term abhuman and move on. Planetary governors may host a dozen Ratling sniper teams and never once learn the name of their breed. This is not ignorance, it is policy. And yet, when the moment comes, when the fog tightens and the Vox goes dead and a war master demands the death of a signal officer hidden behind 8 kilometers of rubble and hostile patrols, there will be a shuttle. There will be an airdrop. And in the dark, with a scope carved from black glass and a smile he didn't ask for, a Ratling will fulfill the contract the Imperium forgot it signed. Not because he is loyal, because he was counted. The parchment says they belong, the bolt gun says otherwise. Ratlings are listed under Imperial rollbook strata as citizens minoris. They possess authorization to bear arms in Astra Militarum campaigns. They may draw rations, receive field pay, and, on rare occasions, be buried with honors. But no guard priest ever carves their names into the wall of the faithful. No inquisitorial tribunal includes their testimonies. Their oath to the Emperor is processed in silence and held in contempt. They are recognized by law and despised by doctrine. Among the Ordos Hereticus, a Ratling is not a man. They are a vector, a variable, a mistake that kills for the Emperor, and thus remains just useful enough not to be incinerated. There are no purges for their kind. There is no need. Their deaths accumulate in battlefields no inquisitor bothers to visit. They do not require cleansing, only neglect. Puritan inquisitors often refuse to fight in theatres that deploy Ratlings. Records from the Askellan sector detail at least 4 formal refusals by Ordo representatives who refused to share ground with degenerates masquerading as faithful tools. One burned his own briefing files rather than review a regiment's sniper reports. The page still smouldered when the Ratlings picked off 3 of his targets at range. He never thanked them. No one ever does. Within the Militarum, Ratlings are processed as special asset auxiliaries. Their equipment requisition forms are cross-checked by servitors trained to flag any request beyond issued arms or ration augmentation. Requests for upgraded scopes, insulation cloaks, or medical attention are flagged pending indefinitely. Yet every war zone that earns a field commendation for extreme range elimination has one thing in common: a payload signature consistent with a Ratling's fire cycle. These entries are left unattributed. Their names do not appear, but the patterns do. Every 5 minutes, one corpse with the back of its skull liquefied. No shell casing, no footprint, just the cold stain of presence that doctrine won't acknowledge. The contradiction festers deeper in the ranks. Commissars who tolerate Ratlings do so at the edge of personal heresy. Some cite tactical necessity, others simply turn away when the snipers eat alone. But in Vox recordings taken near Vrax, one unnamed commissar can be heard muttering, "I'll let them breathe if they keep killing the bastards faster than I can count." That was a mercy. Elsewhere, the mercy ends. On Pelican Reach, a Ratling marksman named Sallow put down 13 Xenos raiders in 12 shots, preventing a breach in the Hab block perimeter. The next day, his corpse was found face down in a latrine. Shot twice in the back. No inquiry followed. The guard chaplain declared it a misfire. There was no funeral. There was no outcry. There was, however, a single burst of sniper fire during the following assault. 4 enemy officers dropped dead before a heavy flamer wiped the line clean. Then silence. No one claimed the kills. No one retrieved the rifle. But the ammunition ledger noted that 3 shells were missing from storage. The next day, it was full again. No one asked why. The Ratling is not deployed. He is embedded. Command never announces their presence. No briefing outlines their position. Tactical holomaps omit them by design. Not because they are secret, because they are inconvenient. No unit in the Astra Militarum matches their effectiveness per caloric unit. A single Ratling, concealed in a crater's edge or the hollow of a ruined vent stack, can stall entire columns of enemy armor, not by destruction, by paralysis. Officers do not advance when every movement might attract a silent wound. This is not suppression fire. It is isolation through fear. They do not fight in formation. They are not expected to. Standard Ratling insertion doctrine, classified in most Militarum lexicons under the phrase asset, auxilia, stealth recon and long-range precision application, dictates terrain integration rather than coordinated maneuver. A Ratling selects his own position, determines his own window, and fires by instinct honed through dietary selection pressure and social survival. Their bodies allow it. Low heat signature, fast metabolic stabilization, collapsed bone structure. A Ratling can remain motionless for 30 hours, heart rate under 35, buried beneath mud and industrial slag. He will not blink. He will not cough. He will not miss. Then he leaves. Before command realizes he was there. They carry no heavy ordnance. They wear no flak plate. But their rifles are tuned to ranges few guard sharpshooters can replicate. The most common configuration is the long-pattern Maccabean silent strike, modified with bone-wrapped barrels and illegal micro-dampeners acquired through black market trade or battlefield salvage. Some prefer ancient Acatron sniper carbines, stripped down for weight, adjusted for the shooter's handspan. They do not fire twice from the same place. They do not wait for orders. In formal doctrine, this is labelled undisciplined engagement. In after-action reports, it is survival. Ratlings function as pre-assault spectres. They enter zones hours ahead of mechanized infantry. They identify enemy scouts and officers, eliminate them, then leave just enough wreckage to delay retaliation. They are not tasked with direct kills. They are tasked with confusion. An enemy platoon without a sergeant becomes static. A munitions convoy missing its driver stalls. A Voxcaster team hit through the spine-halt signal traffic for 12 minutes. That's all the guard needs. 12 minutes of blindness. 12 minutes of rearranged fear. Enough to move armor without being seen. Enough to displace mortars. No one credits them. But the pattern is clear. Where a line doesn't break, where a push gets further than it should. A Ratling was there, then gone. Commanders who trust them never say so aloud. Deployment manifests assign them in pairs, but they separate the moment boots hit soil. They use no code names. They speak in short, clipped hand signal dialects. Not official signum. Something older. Something they teach each other in cook tents and cargo holds. Their battlefield strategy is not written. It is remembered. Passed down between regiments with no known founding world. Their lineage is oral. Their doctrine is instinct. Their kill pattern is immaculate. And when they vanish, no one searches. Because they were never officially present. The quartermaster's ledger lists them under non-essential requisitions. But every guardsman knows, if you need something fast, something off-book, something impossible, you find a Ratling, not on the first day, not during parade drills or weapons checks, but give it a week. Let the rations spoil, the boots blister, the recaf run dry. That's when they appear. From the edge of a hab, the shadow of a transport, or the back of the cookhouse. They don't advertise. They wait. They listen. They ask nothing. And when the time comes, they open a satchel and show you what no one else can provide. Filtered water, unregistered LHO sticks, compact Auspex units, true food. Sometimes even contraband purity seals scraped off corpses before the chaplains could see. No one asks where it came from. Everyone knows it didn't come from supply lines. They operate under the skin of the regiment. A second ecosystem. Silent, inescapable. To most guardsmen, they are tolerated, but not trusted. They eat too well. They vanish too quickly. Their laughs echo at the wrong times, and they never flinch when things explode. There's always a deck of cards in their pocket, a flask in the belt, a tale from some other war, told without urgency, without reverence. As if none of this is new to them, because it isn't. They've seen more campaigns than most officers. They've outlived every squad they've ever been attached to. They don't mourn. They don't salute. They just clean their rifles and vanish into the next trench, waiting for the next moment to matter. The guard pretends not to see it, but resentment bleeds through. Some regiments call them thieves, others prefer rats. In barracks slang, it's not uncommon to hear, "The midgets took my rations," or "Check your ammo, Gob's been watching." These words rarely carry to command, but the sentiment isn't hidden. Ratlings don't argue, they steal back, not out of spite, out of sport. Guardsmen who mock them too loudly often find their scopes missing calibration, their mess kits swapped, their latrine duties doubled by coincidence. Sometimes a bully loses his boots, sometimes his last pack goes missing mid-charge. No one ever sees the Ratling do it. But when it happens, someone is always watching through a scope on a hill, smiling without blinking. They don't retaliate with fists, they retaliate with disappearance. And yet, despite every insult, despite every slur, despite the quiet rage that seethes through the ranks, they are still fed, still protected, still invited to dice games, still covered when the line breaks. Because every guardsman knows the truth. If you're pinned and screaming in no man's land, and you see a figure low to the ground with a long-barreled rifle, you pray it's one of them. You won't see them twice. But you'll breathe one more hour because they were there. They are not loved. They are not included. But they are remembered in the most imperial way imaginable. As a necessary shame. A reminder that the Emperor's armies do not run on honor or unity or pride. They run on survival. And the smallest hands on the battlefield know exactly what that costs. They eat before the kill. Always. Not because they are hungry, though they usually are, but because the act itself is sacred. A ritual as old as their fractured species memory allows. Dry biscuits soaked in recaf dregs. A strip of Grox jerky warmed on the barrel of a longlass. A spoonful of mashed tuber roots swirled with stolen sauce. Small things. Precise. Controlled. Like their shots. Food is not fuel for a Ratling. It is calibration. The palate aligns the hand. The hand aligns the barrel. The barrel aligns the fate of another being's skull with the will of an empire that will never say thank you. To the rest of the guard, they are gluttons. Every quartermaster tells the same tale. Stolen tins, duplicated requisition forms, wine that went missing in transit. Entire platoons have woken to find their protein bricks traded for candied beetle clusters and fried fungi cakes harvested from sewer shafts no one else will enter. It's not always theft. Sometimes it's barter. Sometimes it's threat. Sometimes it's both. But always, it's flavor. Ratlings can smell spoiled protein a week out. They can taste rust in ration tins. They know when grain was stored in a room with a corpse. No one trained them for this. They learned it the hard way, on worlds where the atmosphere cracked skin and the only edible thing was whatever didn't move. To eat well, for a Ratling, is not excess. It is proof they are still alive. Their cookfires are hidden. Their recipes are not. Every Ratling shares. If one knows how to turn fungus into stew, the others learn it within a day. If one discovers a way to rehydrate corpse starch with amasec fumes, it becomes common knowledge within the week. Entire regiments have tasted dishes they didn't know had a name, because a Ratling had been there, crouched behind a burner, slicing something with a knife too clean for regulation. They carry spices like weapons, salt packets folded into map seams, dried kelp tucked behind ammo, powdered marrow stored in canteens never used for water. Some Ratlings even wear their cooking gear, a ladle as a hairpin, a spice pouch stitched into their holster lining. It is not decorum, it is identity. They do not sculpt statues, they do not write hymns, they cook, and if the stew is good, the bullet will find its mark. After a kill, they do not pray. They chew, no song, no mark, no moment of silence, just a bite. Something small, something flavored, something warm if time allows. The kill and the meal are twin offerings. One to the Emperor, unspoken. One to themselves, remembered. A contract. You let me live. I let them die. This is what I keep. No other regiment in the Imperium treats consumption with such weight. For others, food is background noise, shoveled in, swallowed without thought, forgotten by the next bell. For Ratlings, it is a chronicle, each dish a memory, each flavour a body they stepped over to keep walking. There are stories of Ratlings dying with their mouths full, face down in a bowl of soup, still warm, still smiling. Not because they loved death, but because they made sure, right until the end, it tasted like life. They are measured in cost per confirmed kill. A Ratling squad requires fewer rations than a single Ogryn. Their ammunition expense is fractional. Their replacement rate, though high, is deemed acceptable due to negligible training investment. The Departamento Militarum assigns them not as soldiers, but as special function biologics. The term ensures their requisition remains under mechanicus review, rather than ecclesiastic oversight. This isn't cruelty, it's economy. Standard deployment codes categorize Ratlings as Tier 2 Auxilia, not due to skill, but due to classification: abhuman variant, low physical output, high caloric draw, non-doctrinal morale impact. Their kill ratio elevates them to Tier 1 in practice, but doctrine is slow to catch what the field already knows. Militarum scribes calculate value by the milligram. Every last pack consumed is weighed against probable enemy deaths. Ration cubes versus confirmed scouts eliminated. Water reserves versus command officer terminations. They don't see individuals, they see equations. One chart, discovered in the archives of the 42nd Bastion Foundry, estimated that a pair of Ratlings embedded in the Valis Theatre prevented over 4,700 casualties through misdirected enemy artillery. That report was classified. The official commendation was issued to a major who never left the command centre. The Ratlings received a resupply box. Inside, 12 meals, 2 half-charged batteries, and no names. The Militarum does not plan for Ratling funerals. Their bodies are rarely retrieved. When they are, they're marked non-standard human remains, often disposed of in the same crates as used medici gauze or contaminated gear. The field notes do not distinguish between bone and cloth, and yet they are always replaced, not because anyone grieves, because doctrine demands continuity. A Militarum predictive model titled Tactical Entropy Flow in High Mortality Recon Theatres notes that sniper disruption drops by 37% when no Ratlings are present. That same model suggests deploying them into theatres marked unsustainable for baseline humans. Their smaller footprints reduce mine detonation risk. Their tolerance for contaminated rations makes them ideal for long-haul trench insertion. Their silence means they don't need comms equipment. Their deaths don't disrupt morale, because no one officially knows they're there. To the men and women who write the orders, the Ratling is not a soldier. He is an asset. His role is not to win, it is to delay loss. He exists so that others, more visible, more promotable, more canonically human, can live long enough to file reports. So that a general may take credit for a flank that did not collapse. So that the numbers balance before the next supply drop. So that someone else can claim survival. The Militarum knows this. It is why they keep him just fed enough to fight, not enough to grow old. In one faded data slate, found in a bunker after the siege of Sarn 5, a single line was scratched over a logistics form with a dull stylus. They send us rats to bleed the map before the meat arrives. No author, no stamp, no record of who died there. But beside the words, in faint brown smudges, were fingerprints, small, precise, and burned into the plast. Initial contact logs recovered from the outer debris field of Outpost 9, Riatha described a pattern of kinetic disruptions inconsistent with baseline infantry doctrine. Enemy casualties showed no impact craters, no blast radius, no plasma burn. Only high-velocity punctures to vital nodes, orbital ridge, jugular sheath, spinal junctions, executed from angles suggesting extreme oblique positioning. No survivors cited the shooter. No units reported friendly support. No automated systems flagged movement. When backup arrived, they found 5 bodies, each shot once, each still clutching weapons, a ration tin missing, a wine flask emptied, a fragment of wrapper folded under a rock. Subsequent engagements followed the same ritual: unseen incursion, precision application, withdrawal. Officers died first, then Vox Ops, then Medici. Always 3 shots, never more. Ammunition waste, none. At first, these patterns were dismissed as Xenos guerrilla adaptation, but deeper review of ballistics revealed human derivation. Stub case imprints matched Astra Militarum variant tools, long pattern rifles modified for unconventional grip. The range and elevation suggested units with mass under 40 kilograms and posture less than 4 feet. No known sanctioned units matched this profile, except one. The attached record listed no names, no heraldry, no chain of command, only a phrase etched in field cipher. Brutal in the kill, cunning in the void. We eat what we kill, and leave before we're thanked. They move ahead of the line, not with it. They do not receive orders, they interpret vectors, they operate on intuition translated into violence. Their behavior mimics pack logic, but no hierarchy is recorded. In combat, they distribute tasks with silent efficiency. One spotter, one executioner, one displacer. No vox chatter, no hand signals. They simply move. Each is expert in silence. Each carries tools not found in any supply manifest. Bone-sheathed knives, food caches disguised as grenades, cloaks stitched from local vermin. One carried a fork sharpened to a monomolecular edge. They are not listed in command doctrine. But kill reports increase in their shadow. Where artillery fails, they plant charges. Where morale cracks, they whisper songs behind enemy walls. Where the front fractures, they hold nothing. But ensure the next squad finds the enemy already broken. These are not ratlings in the common sense, not the loud ones, not the thieves. These are what happens when enough campaigns burn the laughter out. And only instinct and appetite remain. They are brutal, they are cunning, and they are not waiting for permission. He was not named in the after-action reports from the Kursk impact zone. The corpse was never recovered. No one remembered when he arrived. But the picked feed from a shattered rampart transport caught one frame. A small silhouette crouched beneath a melted Aquila sigil, rifle pressed to one eye, firing into smoke. Behind him, the sky tore open. To his left, an enforcer lay dying with a clean shot between the brows. To his right, a servitor burned. His name, if spoken, never passed the vox, but the kill was clean. One shot, one death, then nothing. In the rubble of Kursk, scavenger units found a data slate embedded in concrete. It carried no encryption, only a series of logged fire coordinates cross-referenced with medikey tags, enforcer personnel, slain with subcranial precision. No fingerprints, no metadata, just a final line etched in personal code. They earned it. I'm still hungry. The slate was archived and forgotten, but the marks remained. Elsewhere, buried in the lower strata of the Serenus Electi suppression logs, a cook named Herbo Prongfork appears once, marked as a provisioner aboard a frigate that never returned. His logs are mundane. Caloric breakdowns, spice inventories, complaints about protein packs. But within his files, an anomaly surfaced. Embedded in a shipment report was a hand-drawn map of ventilation shafts, marked with timing cycles and red dots, likely sentry paths. Beneath one corner, a recipe, spiced grox marrow over grit loaf. A scribe flagged it. The note was marked for deletion, but one auditor overrode the purge. She wrote, "These aren't annotations, they're extraction routes." Herbo's name was never listed again, but 3 officers aboard that frigate died within 30 seconds of each other, each with a single wound. The kitchen was empty. In the ruins of Varangantua, deep within the data logs of Basilica St. Antiope, a forensic ledger was recovered after the dome collapsed. One section, barely intact, referenced the presence of unknown bodies near the crypt chambers, small, scorched, partially consumed by fire. The report cited auxiliary casualties, origin unclear. No rank, no tags, just size, just silence. And yet, 3 days later, the enemy's forward recon elements were eliminated with surgical precision. Not a single Vox transmission made it back. The shots came from below. The guard never breached that sector, but someone else did. Across a dozen novels and fractured recollections, the pattern persists. Not names, never lineage, but silhouettes in shadow, meals consumed in aftermath, ammunition not requisitioned, wounds too precise for desperation. They are the parts of the story no one recounts. Not because they're unimportant, because they make everything else feel dishonest. The Imperium cannot afford honesty, so their memory survives in contradiction, the whispered joke between sergeants when their supplies go missing, the warmth of an unauthorized stew in the cold, the silence before a sniper's round that saves a command post, the smell of burnt spices and the feeling of being watched. They were there. They are always there. You just won't remember them until you realize what didn't go wrong. They are not baseline. This is stated without hesitation in every fragment of Imperial dogma that survives the lexiconal purges. Ratlings are listed among the abhuman strains classified as permitted divergence under codified variance thresholds. Their genetic deviation is mapped, measured, and grudgingly tolerated, not for its righteousness, not for purity, but for utility. The Imperium does not accept them. It absorbs them like a wound that won't clot. The Schola Progenium does not admit Ratlings. There are no Ratling commissars, no Ratling sisters, no Ratling saints. Their kind is barred from every path that ascends through ritual or revelation. The ecclesiarchy speaks of the Emperor's light, but rarely specifies how far it shines downward. They are too small to bear relics, too hungry to lead sermons, too efficient to be holy, but they remain. In the Inquisitorial Codex de Forma Deviata, penned during the Gethsemane Reformation, a footnote buried beneath heretical warnings offers a rare concession. Among the lesser deviants permitted field access, the diminutive marksmen of the abhuman strain exhibit a capacity for independent operational survivability. They pose theological discomfort, but demonstrate measurable service. It is the closest the Inquisition ever came to calling them loyal. Still, purity tests fail them. They lack the zeal for martyrdom. They hoard trinkets. They break regulations. They smile when they kill. They eat forbidden meats. They steal. And yet, when the bastions fall and the reliquaries burn and the vox screams silence, Ratlings remain in the dust, rifle braced, sight steady, clearing a path for the faithful who never saw them kneel. No monument carries their names. No cathedral shows their faces. They are not remembered. They are not erased. They exist at the boundary. A species not blessed, not damned, just used. But there is something older than doctrine that still echoes when the last bolt is fired and the world goes black. A small voice, quiet in the rubble, muttering not a prayer, but a recipe. And if it tastes good, you might just live long enough to taste it again.